It's Thursday, August 9th. I'm Scott,
I'm Rim.
and this is Geeknights. Tonight, how to not suck at slacking off. Let's do this. So, Rim, anything happen today?
A bunch of boring stuff at work. I could go on in depth about everything that I do at work, but it's really not that interesting.
Yeah, I got nothing either. So, I just do the show.
I guess we don't have any of those wacky stories from our day to talk about today.
I guess not. All right, then. So, news time. So, that Barry Bonds, he hit that 756th home run there. He's hit more home runs in Major League Baseball than any other single person.
All right. I can't say that I care at all. I barely know who that is.
Nope. Some guy named Matt Murphy, a college student from Queens, caught the ball. All right? And which is funny because he was in San Diego and went to the game on a whim. And I didn't see television, of course, because I did not watch television. But apparently he was making a fool of himself, being like, I'm Matt Murphy from Queens. I'm Matt Murphy from Queens. Anyway, the story here is that the ball has an estimated value of $500,000, maybe a little more,
Yeah.
something like that.
If I were him, I would pretty much
At
put
least
it on-
if you sold it, yesterday when he or 2 days ago when he caught it. I'm not exactly sure.
Well,
but-
that's what I would have done. I would have put it on eBay immediately.
Ahem. Technically, according to the laws of the United States, that's taxable income right there, even if he doesn't sell the ball. Even if he just gives the ball back to Barry Bonds. Even if, no matter what, he caught the ball, even if he just, handed it to the person next to him, right? Technically, it's taxable income. And that immediately puts him into the highest tax bracket. And on the ball alone, they estimate that he would have to pay $210,000 in tax, even if he gave the ball away. United States tax system, so awesome.
I'm really glad that I have not run into the more intricate issues of the tax
Not only
system.
that, but if he holds on to the ball for even a day, if the ball appreciates in value, technically, he'd have to pay a capital gains tax on the appreciation.
See, the thing is, technically, don't I have to pay? I should be paying capital gains taxes on all those Nazi coins and things I have.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem with the tax system is they have all these, yeah.
Granted, while there are problems with the U.S. tax system, I want to say right now, before anyone gets any ideas, that all those people for fair tax or flat tax or any F-star tax, they're morons, and those ideas are stupid.
Those ideas are stupid. The tax system is bad. That doesn't mean your equally bad idea
Equally bad,
or possibly worse
you
bad
dare
idea.
to put that fair tax anywhere near the realm of sanity.
Anyway,
That's probably one of the worst ideas a human being has ever had.
the only thing I
I
gotta
mean,
say...
that hobo who shoved a fork in his eye, not so bad compared to fair tax.
So this guy, though, he doesn't have much to worry about because apparently when Mark McGwire, hit his home run for his different home run record, of home runs in a single season, someone from the IRS was like, yeah, you got to pay tax on that. And then someone else from the IRS was like, no, we're just kidding. After politicians, said, hey, that's pretty stupid right there.
That gives me heart. At least it proves that there are some politicians who are not some sort of skin spy, but are actually a human being.
Yep. So hopefully, if the IRS tries to tax this guy, I mean, if he does sell the ball, right, I do believe, personally, that he should be taxed on the money he gets for the sale, not, whatever people say the value is. So if he sells it for $1, sure, make him pay, 35 cents or whatever.
Honestly, what I would probably have done is said I was keeping the ball, sell it to someone under the table for cash, like some collector.
Get another ball to replace it.
Even if it was far less, and then just say I lost it because I didn't care about baseball.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. If it depreciated in value or I lost it, couldn't I claim some sort of tax boon as a result?
I don't know. If you lose something valuable, you know what you could do? You know how you could get money by losing it? If you got insurance on it and then you lost it.
Yeah, but then technically it's insurance fraud.
That's what I'm saying.
Which is
that there's no way to make money. There's no way to get money by basically setting money you have on fire. There's no way to get more money than
unless you're a business and you play shady games with the taxes. I had a friend who explained to me in great detail how the best way to make money off of a business is to every few years lose a whole bunch of money on paper, whether or not you actually lost a bunch of money.
The only way I've seen to successfully make a lot of money and avoid, with that sort of scam and avoid insurance fraud would be to say, have a contest, get some prize insurance, right? I'm not going to explain how prize insurance works. You should figure it out.
I think it's pretty self-evident.
Yeah. You're not allowed to have people in the company or your friends or your family enter the contest because, they obviously figured that scam out, right? But if someone else wins the contest and then they're so generous they just give you the money, that's a way to get money from insurance without...
Well, they'd still have to give you the money. So you have to do all sorts of surreptitious, shady things.
Or you just have someone who's really dumb and you're like, yeah, you have to give that money to me. Okay.
A much simpler way is to have the person killed and steal the money.
Yep, but I don't know. What's a worse crime? Murder or telling someone to murder or hiring a hitman versus insurance fraud? What has the worst penalty?
But at the same time, the evidence shows time and time again that if someone only commits a single murder, their odds of being caught are very low unless they're stupid.
Oh, what are the odds of getting caught if you commit a single insurance fraud?
Probably much higher. The thing is, I've noticed that most of the people you see getting caught with insurance fraud are not the brightest people, and they're not engaged in the... let's say that Sherlock Holmes is not on the case.
I don't think Sherlock Holmes is on any case.
I think we can simplify this further. The best way to make money is to already have money.
Yes. And, even if, basically, I think what the law does, even if you followed the law and paid the tax on the ball, it pretty much encourages anyone who catches the ball who's not already rich to sell it. So it pretty much, the tax law in the United States, if followed to the letter, basically guarantees that anything valuable that is suddenly created will always end up in the hands of someone who is already rich.
I did interestingly enough learn not too long ago about how China's tax system works.
How does it work?
And particularly how Hong Kong works. I'm not going to get into the details. It's kind of complicated. What I can say is that people look at the U.S. and, we tax the rich more in order to even out, and the top X% of Americans pay 90% of the taxes. In China, in Hong Kong, it's that times a million. I think 40 or 50% of the people don't pay any tax at all, and then the wealthy pay almost all the taxes.
Maybe that's why they have so many Chinese mafias, to avoid paying those taxes and also be rich at the same time.
As a result, unless you are one of those people who pays those taxes, you can't vote.
Oh.
So it's not one vote, one person. It's basically pay taxes, get a vote. So only basically doctors, lawyers, and educators can vote, and no one else can. And the thing is, there's this big argument in Hong Kong about universal suffrage. And mostly it's poor people who want it, saying that we should get a vote. And a lot of other people are saying that that would ruin the system, because if people who don't have to pay the taxes at all and don't have to in any way deal with the consequences of a government that spends more money have control over the government's purse strings, that they'll spend more money if people that they don't have it wouldn't break the system.
Yeah,
But at the same time, see, I disagree with some of that, but at the same time, I imagine a world where only people with an IQ above, say, 130 get a vote.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I feel about that.
It's real tough, because we used to have a system in the U.S. where you pretty much had to take a literacy test to vote, and it was ruled unconstitutional because it was basically being used right out to keep black people from voting.
Yeah, no,
it wasn't a real literacy test. It was like, black people can't vote. We're pretending it's a literacy test.
Yep. And that's bullshit.
That is quite the bullshit.
It's kind of like the Civil War in the U.S. I was with the South on pretty much every issue except that whole slavery bullshit. I mean, if it hadn't been about slavery, yeah, War of Northern Aggression. But you know what?
Why is it so hard to do a good thing without doing a bad thing?
I mean, look, we get people who assert their rights. Oh, but they're asserting their right to have slaves. Oh, look, states' rights. Anytime someone asserts states' rights, it's almost always to do something regressive and stupid. But I think we should bring the literacy test back.
If it's a real literacy test and there's no corruption, then yes. The problem is, because there's guaranteed to be horrible corruption, no.
The thing is, what if the test were just published ahead of time with all the answers? Then, straight up, I had a teacher in school who did this a bunch of times. He'd give you, the week before the test, every single question that was going to be on the test and the answers to every single one of them, clearly and openly, and he'd say as much. and people still failed those tests. And in that case, while you wouldn't get a lot of people, the people who weren't allowed to vote because they didn't get those questions right, I don't think they have any right to be voting.
I do think...
Even, I'd say offer it in any language.
I do think that an ideal system would have some sort of way to fairly determine that some people's votes count and some people's votes do not. For example, if someone votes for, say, Joe Schmo, and they can't tell you what Joe Schmo's platform is, I don't think that their vote for Joe Schmo should count. However, there is no fair way to test them, and thus... in reality, I don't think there's a practical and pragmatic way to implement such a system.
But Scott, I thought it was easy. All you have to do is only give the vote to white males who own land.
Oh. Okay.
That system worked really well, didn't it?
Yeah, so well.
Anyway, speaking of voting.
I wouldn't even be able to vote. I'm a white male who doesn't own land.
My family owns a little bit of land.
No, but you don't own land.
I have a claim to that land.
But then their vote, your dad's vote, represents you. You don't get to vote.
My dad votes the same way I do.
That's fine.
That's fine.
You're just saying, you don't get to vote.
But someday I will when I inherit that land. I am the eldest son.
If you inherit land. They might just, let the land go and you inherit something else.
Thing is, the land will be valuable because I won't get into that. Anyway. So, the courts ruled on a case that's been around since the year 2000 about
That's
voting.
not so old.
That's pretty old considering what it was about. Basically, some people set up voteswap2000.com. And the way the site worked was you could say, I want to vote for Ralph Nader, but I don't want to throw away my vote and let Bush win the election.
Oh, you tied it in somehow.
So,
to the previous news.
The site was set up where someone who was in a state or a district where their candidate was pretty much guaranteed to win no matter what could swap votes with someone in a contested area. So let's say I swap my vote because I live in a place where if a non-democratic person ever won in any time the presidential votes of New York State, I can't imagine that happening. So my vote doesn't count in this state at all. My vote has no effect on anything.
Elliot Spitzer got 75+% of the vote. He couldn't lose, Governor. He couldn't possibly lose.
Yep. So I know that, whoever the Democratic candidate is going to win New York no matter what in 2008. But let's say I want Ralph Nader's party or the Libertarians or one of those third parties to get my vote. Not because they're going to win. I know they're not going to win. But in order to get that 5% or whatever of votes that they get federal funding, I can swap my vote with someone in Ohio, a swing state. So that person will agree to vote for my candidate in Ohio. And in return, I will vote for their third-party candidate in my state.
Yep.
And the site was sent a bunch of letters from the California Secretary of State informing them that their website is illegal and it's corruption and blah, blah, blah. And the site was shut down. And then a giant court case started. And the court case is finally over. It was ruled that there is nothing wrong whatsoever with vote swapping. Anyone who said otherwise is an idiot, and that's the end of that.
Well, what could possibly be wrong with it? First of all, there's no way for them to, verify that you actually swapped your vote. I'm sure some people did and some people didn't, but there's no way to guarantee.
See,
it's basically just a bunch of people saying stuff on a website, and it doesn't have any real meaning at all.
Well, here, on the first, I'm of the mind that anyone who votes currently, because currently the system is any citizen can vote, regardless of my feelings as to literacy and whatever. I'm of the mind that if you are letting someone vote, you cannot ever tell them what factors they should consider. If someone has the vote and decides to vote for Bill Clinton because they like his saxophone playing, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I might disagree, but people should be able to vote on whatever factors they want. And if someone decides that they want to give their vote to someone else, or just vote randomly, flip a coin in the toll, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, you can vote however you want. If you can't vote however you want, it's not really a free vote, and you're forced to decide based on someone else's decision. You're not really voting. You're just doing something someone else told you to.
So frankly, I'm fine with people straight up selling their votes. $5 a vote, whatever.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the system in America is that you cannot get a receipt of who you voted for. You cannot bring proof out of the booth. That way, while people can do all sorts of things and decide however they want, you can't be forced to vote for someone no matter what.
Yeah, you go into that little booth or you go and do whatever, and there's a curtain behind you. No one knows who you vote for. If you don't look and you just vote with your eyes closed, you won't know who you voted for. You'll never know. It'll be a complete mystery, And
I should do that.
there's no way to prove it to yourself or anyone else.
I should walk into the booth, close my eyes, go flick, 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 and pull the lever.
You should. It'd be fun. Do it on on off year. Anyway.
You mean this coming one?
Exactly. So any sort of, corruption in the votes usually involves election workers or having dead people vote or something, or bad machines or bad counting.
That
or
was
something
actually
like
happening
that.
in Beacon during the last round of elections. There was this old lady, and she was, showing people in to vote, and she kept saying to everyone who came up, "Don't forget to vote on the Open Spaces Initiative. Don't forget to vote for the Open Spaces Initiative." And finally, the real election person noticed and walks over, and she's like, "What you're doing is in violation of federal law. I could have you arrested, blah, 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 blah," and scared the living shit out of this old woman.
Yep.
But the thing is, the old woman also was kind of indignant. Like, I should be able to, it's an important issue, and people should vote. And, yeah.
Yeah.
The sad thing is, the
thing is
passed.
The thing is, yeah, while she was, I mean, it would be okay if it was like, hey, remember, there's a question to vote for at the top. Don't just vote for the people. There's a question also on there. Don't forget to look at it.
No, I don't even agree with that, because she is saying that and no other poller is, she is skewing the votes by reminding
That's
people
the thing,
of something.
is that pretty much, I think, if there's something on the ballot that is off or that people might not notice, I don't think there's a problem with them drawing attention to it. However, there is a problem if they lean slightly in either direction.
Or if the methodology of the election is broken by the fact that any one election official is doing something different from the other ones.
That is correct.
Like if there happens, say I go into the booth and I just highlight Barack's name while I'm voting.
All right, so
God,
yeah.
I will say, I actually, despite the fact that I hate the Democratic Party almost as much as I hate the Republican Party, I register as the Democrat just so I can vote in the primary for Barack Obama.
Whatever.
Barack attack.
Okay, so basically, I don't give a shit about what you do outside the voting booth in terms of elections, at least in the United States, because if it's corrupt and your vote doesn't matter. And if it's not corrupt, then it doesn't matter what you do outside the booth. Because no one knows who you voted for. You could just be full of shit. It doesn't matter. So, blah.
I am very glad that the courts ruled properly. And there's a quote. They said they violated the appellant's First Amendment rights.
Aha!
Things of the day.
So a while ago, there was this video on the internet of some youth pastor who's, the guy seems like a nice enough guy, but he's a youth pastor. So, of course, I'm going to be anti him because he's one of those Jesus people.
He didn't seem really that nice. He seemed really like one of those overly excited people.
Exactly.
I don't like those people at all. I can't stand their presence because it's such an affected excitement.
Yeah, but he doesn't seem like he's bad like what those evil pastors who are like out to get everyone's money. He seemed like he was genuinely believing. He was just... the excited and sort of crazy kind of...
That guy is
a youth pastor.
That
Come
guy
on.
is the G4 TV of Christianity.
Pretty much. So, this guy was like talking about Lot and something like that, and he was talking...
and waved his unsexing stick. Most unsexily.
Desexing stick.
All right, it was desexing stick most unsexily.
Exactly. So, he was waving around his desexing stick, and basically, the guy was talking about Lot, like, pitching tents, or...
Pinching tits?
Yeah, and basically he accidentally said pinching tits, and it was a funny video on the internet. So some other people saw this video, and they said, hey, I got an idea. And they went pretending to be FCC agents, and they went up to him, and they went to his church, and they put on a whole big thing, and they totally fooled him into thinking that he was going to have to pay a $50,000 fine at least, and that they were going to have to, take away the church's nonprofit thingy. And the guy was like freaking out and sweating all over the place, and he's really got a fire under his ass, and it's pretty funny.
Now that in and of itself is funny. I love a good prank. It's not quite as good in my mind as It's a Good Night for Flying, but it's still a good prank.
No. The best part about this particular prank video is they actually show you when they tell the guy that it's a prank. And he has like his reaction is like, ah, and that's a good part.
No, that's a good reaction too. Nothing bothers me more than someone who gets angry after a prank has been pulled on them.
No, he doesn't get angry. He's sort of like, he seems like he's containing any anger that is there. Like he starts just like rushing the guy, and then he just sort of like jumps around the room all crazily. And
I thought the way you portrayed that, I thought that he laughed and thought it was awesome.
He sort of thought it was awesome.
Sorta?
Kinda.
But
It's
wait,
hard to tell.
So he ran around the room?
Yeah, he was pretty excited and had a lot of kinetic energy when they told him.
See? That was the G4 creeping out.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So it's kind of freaky, but yeah, you should still watch this because it's funny and is a good prank, especially considering the irony that, you know, a church person is the kind of person who would tend to agree with the FCC and such. So having them get burned by the FCC is sort of a way to show them the light that they're wrong. Oh,
See,
I
now,
said show them the light about a religious thing.
that was
Clever.
good. But the thing that really bothers me is that it's kind of sad that we live in a country right now where that is a very viable and credible threat.
It is indeed.
That the FCC does have the power to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, they do. Well, actually, in this case, they didn't really, have anything against this guy.
Oh, no, but had he been on the radio or
Yeah.
on TV?
Well, I mean, if radio people did rebroadcast what he said. The problem is he's not responsible for that. The radio people are. So,
Yep.
Yeah. But, you know, it was easy to trick him into thinking he could get in trouble for it. And it's pretty believable, especially since they executed the prank very well. They had a very high production value with some good cameras and some good acting and all kinds of good stuff.
I don't know, but for whatever reason, when you said executed, I immediately expected you to say him.
Ah,
And I don't know why.
oh, well.
Anyway, oh well. Luckily. Right. So, this is a video, a movie from 1951.
Or 52.
No, 51.
Okay.
And this is a video teaching you, nominally it teaches you about table manners and all that crap in, classic 1950s way. But that is
Duck
not
and cover.
that is not my thing of the day. The video is merely the vessel for my thing of the day. Much like before, when my thing of the day was the nom 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 nom. So, in this video is perhaps the worst sweater that has ever been made in the world.
How bad is it?
The fact that this video is not in color is probably the only reason that I'm still sane.
Or the reason that you're not blind?
This is the worst sweater ever. I can't stress to you enough how hideous this sweater is. It's these two mooses around a Christmas tree, and it's...
Are you sure they aren't reindeer?
I don't care. Maybe it's a fire. Maybe they're demons. I'm not sure. And the fact that
That was the extent of knitting technology in the 50s. What do you want?
the fact that there are two people wearing this identical sweater, one of whom is larger than the other. Thus, there were at least two sizes of this sweater. At least two of them were made. One to rule them and in the darkness bind them.
Right.
Good God. Oh, and the video's kind of funny. It's about table manners, and it's really dumb.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb. I mean, table manners. It's kind of funny because the kid comes down from upstairs or wherever, and he exhibits bad table manners, and then they tell him that he should do better, and then they go to explain how to have better table manners. But his table manners and his attitude that he has in the beginning of the video, where it's supposedly the bad part, is like a god compared to, like, I don't know, me every day or most people in this country.
It's kind of like watching Happy Days or Leave It to Beaver, where there's the bad kids like Fonzie. Fonzie was the most good-natured, nice, lovable, well-mannered person in the world compared to the average kid today.
Yeah, I know. Freaking like 100 years from now, people are going to look at Mike Tyson and be like, oh, what a nice guy. He's so nice. All right.
Right, so we should just stop here and not do the rest of the show.
Good idea. I
see,
got lots of better things to be doing anyway.
I'm not going to try to make that a clever segue any more so than I already attempted. But tonight, we're talking about something that someone requested a while ago, yet again. You see, Scott and I we slack off, but that doesn't really do it justice. I would say that we are professional slackers.
I just adjusted my angle of reclining.
I'm reclining back right now. I got a slightly different angle myself, but pretty much from middle school on, Scott and I have done very little real work in the world.
Well, in elementary school, they always told me, your grades matter so much or you won't get into honors classes in middle school. And I was like, oh, no.
And of course, my parents were like, if you don't get all A's, you're stupid.
Yeah. And then in middle school, they were like, well, also in elementary school, they told me I should take notes and study. And I didn't even know what study meant. Like, I knew that study meant somehow that you prepared for a test or an exam, but I didn't know what you did to study. Like, I'm like, what do I do? I don't know what the physical thing I'm supposed to do is. And I always got excellent grades doing nothing. And they said, take notes. And at first, taking notes meant copy down onto a piece of paper everything the teacher writes on the overhead.
Yeah, and I realized pretty much right away that served no useful purpose.
And then when at first that was like an assignment, like you had to do it and it was graded. But then later they're just like, remember to take notes. And I didn't.
The thing that really scared me in high school, in all the like AP classes, there were a lot of overachievers in the classes who would bring little tape recorders and record every day's lecture while they took notes.
I don't get it. All right. And basically, as time went on, I didn't do anything. My grades were just fine. I didn't do anything. My grades were just fine. And then eventually I realized grades don't matter that much. It's all a lie. I'm going to go to college no matter what. I'll be fine.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if I get a C or a B in freaking calculus.
I mean, I tried. I actually tried right up until about the first quarter of 9th grade in high school. My first year of high school, the first quarter. And I had all A's, and I'd been doing all my homework, and I realized suddenly that, like Scott, I'm going to college no matter what. Nothing's going to stop me. Wow, I don't care about any of this. And I suddenly stopped doing homework.
Yeah?
Literally, no. When I say I stopped doing homework, I actually told my teachers, I'm sorry, but I have a no homework policy. And I seriously did not do homework ever.
My policy was I didn't do anything that wasn't graded. So if it was, do this project or write this essay, there's a grade on it. It's an assignment that counts. I did it. Otherwise, I did not do it, no matter what.
Well, it really depends. I mean, it started out like that, but then we got even worse. In college and a little bit in high school, it wasn't just that. It was more, all right, so that assignment is worth what, 5% of my grade? Bah, I can still get an A and not even bother.
Yeah.
And then it got worse. I'd be like, all right, that's worth 10% of my grade. If I skip that and I do moderately well in the rest of the class, I'm guaranteed a B. All right. If I also skip the first midterm, can I pull off a C? Because if I skip the first midterm, I can skip the whole first half of the class.
Oh, man.
And it just went downhill from there.
I remember one time in 11th grade. And I was in my social studies class, which was actually like current events, something. No, I forget exactly what it was, but it was a really cool teacher.
In high school, the word social studies class always meant just usually nothing.
No, it was actually a really cool teacher.
Really?
A cool class, yeah. It was one of the better, it was actually a libertarian and stuff. It was cool. And basically, during the class once, the guy sitting behind me, football guy, who was actually not a bad guy, he was, the teacher goes over to him and says, "Why aren't you taking notes?" And he's like, "Scott's not taking notes." And he's like, "Scott gets A's. You take notes."
That's beautiful.
That was a fun time.
See, the best was all the classes that had curves. I mean, especially like all the AP calculus, whatever classes. They were graded on a straight up curve. Whoever did the best in the class got 100%, and it just went downhill from there. And homework was worth like 25% of our grade. But there's only one class of us, so we realized, hey, what if we collaborate? Then none of us have to do the homework ever, and it won't matter. So we all stopped doing the homework. An unnamed individual secretly did the homework and secretly turned it in all year, but I won't get into that.
All right, so basically, when it comes to slacking off, especially in school, you have to determine a few things. You have to determine one, what is the minimum actual work you have to do to get by? Because you can't do absolutely nothing and get by. That's never going to happen.
And also
you
remember,
at least have to show up for like one test at the minimum.
Get by can vary because it's not just get by on the bare minimum period. It's get by in terms of what are your goals? What do you want or need to accomplish? How can you accomplish said goals with minimum efforts?
And you determine the exact minimum amount of work, time you're going to have to spend doing things in order to achieve that, what you need to achieve. And once you figure that out, you spend exactly that amount of time working and not a second more.
Now, schooling, particularly pre-college schooling, so high school, middle school, elementary school, is a very special case because, especially in America, you're going to graduate anyway. And the way college admissions work, as long as you do well on various standardized tests, you're going to get into college anyway.
Unless you want to go to Harvard or somewhere like that or Yale really badly, You don't need freaking a zillion A's.
Well, even then, a high standardized test score, but when I say high, I mean really high, will make up for almost any failing for many schools.
Wow. Yeah, it's kind of true.
I mean, look at RIT. Because of my test scores, they didn't even look at my high school transcript. For all they know, I never graduated from high school.
Yeah. And like your freaking like college essays and stuff, unless you're applying to be some sort of like literature major, they're barely reading that. You know, think about it, it's admissions people looking at this stuff, not teachers. They got a pile of things and they're processing them. And they're just gonna process them as quick as they can. And be like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, no, no. They have like a formula that tells them what to say yes and when to say no. And interviews and stuff are mostly ways for them to advertise their school to you and not ways to pick you out from the other people, except at really small schools.
Actually, that's a very important thing to remember, because I know a lot of our listeners are near the end of high school. The colleges you are looking at before you are a student are not your friends. They are trying to sell to you the idea of going to their school. They don't care directly about you until you are already a student. And if a man plays a trumpet for you and tries to convince you through his trumpet playing that IT is a major that you want to go into, you got to step back and think if that's really the way you want to decide on your major, because I made that mistake.
Fun.
IT is great. You'll make six figures. Doesn't take any work. And then the .com bust happened like 6 months later.
Fooled by the Pied Piper, so to speak.
Yes. But anyway, pre-college, I mean, your goal in high school is either to get a job, or go to a trade school, go to college, whatever. And outside of that, nothing you do in high school, with rare exception, is going to matter. Your grades in high school, once you get accepted to college, mean less than nothing. Less than nothing.
Unless you really have to go to Harvard or something really badly.
Yeah, so in that case...
Or unless your parents were like, stab you, for real. Not like threaten you and yell at you, but like actually stab you.
So, well, I guess one of the biggest things if you want to be a true slacker that you have to be able to do is figure out your true goals and figure out the true requirements of achieving those goals and be willing and able to cast aside all of the distractions that will not get you to your goal.
Yes, and you also, the next thing you have to do is not worry ever about, you have to basically do enough work so that you won't worry. If you worry for even a second, like, oh, maybe I didn't do enough work, maybe I won't achieve my goal, if there's any uncertainty, you have failed completely.
This is especially true when you were skipping class. I know a lot of you probably never skipped a class. A lot of people never skip a class, or at least rarely skip a class. But I've seen people who would finally get up the testicular fortitude to skip a class. And then they spend the whole hour or two that they're skipping this class worrying about the fact that they skipped the class. And as a result, they don't really get the enjoyment they should have gotten. If you were going to skip a class, if you were going to forego important work, if you're going to do anything like that, you'd better get everything you can get out of that skipped work, or why did you even bother?
Yeah, if you decide that this homework is not necessary to achieve your goals and you don't do it, and you spend all night worrying about the fact that you didn't do it, you should have just done it, because you would have spent maybe a half hour doing it instead of 8 hours worrying and then worrying the entire next day and then still worrying some more. You didn't get any fun during the time you saved. You just freaking worried.
I mean, when I skipped class in high school, the first couple times I was a little anxious, like, they're going to get me. But I never really thought about the specific consequences they could lay upon me. I just thought, skipping class, you can't do that. How are you going to get away with it? They'll know. It's high school. And then one day, I just didn't go to English class. And then another day, I went out to Arby's and hung around in the mall for a couple hours. One day, I just didn't even go to school. And I realized that there were no ramifications at all, and no one cared.
Huh? Look at that.
Granted, because of the attitude that many of the teachers had toward me, it turned out later that most of them just assumed that I was in the band or I was doing something important or that I was excused, and they never bothered to check up on it. So if you're going to be a professional slacker, not just an amateur slacker, you have to go do more than just do the minimum to accomplish your goals. You also have to accomplish in the eyes of others a lot more than you are actually accomplishing.
And this is why there's some very important rule of slacking. And that is, the greater your abilities, the less you have to do. Because if you're really, let's say I'm really good at my job, right? if I'm super good at my job, I can either find a harder job, in which I will have 8 hours of work to do each day, or I can do a lesser job, right? And since I'm so good at it, I can do the whole job in like 10 minutes and slack the rest of the day. A professional slacker, watch out for these people. People who are getting by without doing any work, sort of like Homer Simpson. They are secret geniuses. They have awesome abilities, and they're using like their immense power to do the bare minimum they have to do to get the job done, and the rest of their time they're doing whatever the hell they want, and they're not looking like geniuses.
I mean, think of this. Say, I don't know, an essay for an English class. You have to write an essay, right? Think about how much work it takes you to get the A paper, right? The A paper, the good paper, the paper that is as good as it's going to be. Not the A+, but the A. Now, think about how much less work it takes to get the B. And think about how much less work it takes to get the C.
Now, think about how much less work it takes to get the C if you have the ability to write the A in like a half hour. Think about how long it would take you to write the C.
Even better, if you have done all the professional slacker things, and you've created in the eyes of the people who will be judging you the idea that you are brilliant and awesome at everything you do, then if you do a subpar job and you write the B paper or the C paper, there's a good chance they're going to give you the A anyway because they know what you're capable of. Or at least they think they know what you're capable of.
Yes, a slacker's next best thing is always figure out loopholes in the system. If there's a teacher who's not actually grading the papers and just sort of grading based on your name and then not reading them, you need to take advantage of that. Just put your name on the paper and fill the rest of the page with words. Put some real words at the beginning, real words at the end, and just gobbledygook all the way in between.
I often in high school, I put in the middle of a lot of papers a single nonsense sentence. Something about like, I don't know, cable ties and dogs and plastic bags.
If there is a situation in which there is work to be done, and you can save a significant amount of time by making it look like the work was done when it was not, and everyone will be fooled by this, fucking do it.
Now remember,
and don't worry that you did it. If you worry, it won't work.
Now remember, the key here is that no one will notice, because if no one notices and no one could care and it doesn't affect anyone, then the work wasn't worth doing in the first place.
And you effectively did the work.
Yeah.
Because the only work that they really assigned you was make it look like you did the work, not to actually do the work.
Because in the world of a slacker, everything you do is not the sum of what you actually did, but it is the sum of what other people have appraised of what they think you have done.
It's basically doing the least you can possibly do to get what you want in the least amount of time.
Now, the wonderful part of all this is sometimes, to be a true slacker, you have to put forth uncountable amounts of effort early on in order to get the massive payoff later. For example, say for the first quarter of your senior year of, I don't know, AP English class. I don't know why I keep using English. Maybe because I skipped that the most. You do crazy awesome work. You go above and beyond on every possible assignment. The teacher now thinks you're the golden child. For the rest of the year, you can do jack shit and you'll still get an A. And I did that straight up my senior year to the point that I remember we did a presentation. This was like a huge part of our year. Like we spent months on it. And all the quote unquote smart kids who were also professional slackers with one exception, we all got ourselves into the same group. Mostly by begging and asking, despite the fact that they were supposed to be random. And we put together something that, I mean, it wasn't bad in the, I don't know, MD Geist way. It was something that a C student would put together. It was garbage. And we got an A just because our names were on it.
Ah, awesome.
And other people in the class knew. They could tell. But what were they going to say to the teacher? What could they possibly have said? The teacher was already enamored. She had already fallen for our guiles. There was no way out.
Yeah. There's not much more to say about slacking, really, other than... I know one thing. Another key thing for a slacker is not to want too much. Remember before, I was talking about how, you don't need all A's unless you want Harvard. The more you want, the more work you're going to have to do to get it. The less you want, the less work you have to do, regardless of your ability. So if you have a lot of ability and very few wants, you don't have to do much.
Now, at the same time, you can be a professional slacker and still want a lot. It just means that you're going to get all of the things that you want with the least effort that you can possibly get all of those things.
Yup, but if you want too many things, that least effort still might be all goddamn day every day.
The other thing you really have to worry about, and this is probably the biggest thing, is that when you are a professional slacker, you have to realize that you're walking now a razor-thin line and that there is now very little room for error. In college, I mean, we said I make the determination of, all right, that assignment, that project that I don't want to do is worth 10% of my grade. All right, I can still get an A if I do everything else perfectly. Now, a single screw-up drops you to the B. A single screw-up. There's no more margin. It's like when you're car racing. The faster you go around that corner, the less chance you have to recover if you fuck something up.
And thus, the key to being an excellent slacker of the highest caliber is to simultaneously walk the razor's edge and not worry about falling in either direction, despite the fact that falling in either direction can happen at any moment.
Wow, I guess we kind of made...
It's like you have to not worry when you should be worrying the most.
You have to be like Lancelot in that
You have to have
kind of lame
such
movie where Sean Connery played King
giant
Arthur.
testicles, such, confidence and fortitudes.
Right. We could say more, but frankly, I'm kind of lazy and I don't want to bother.
Me either. Plus, I kind of want to do a geek bite because, we started this new segment last week, and I got a really good one.
I'm not going to bother putting music in yet because I still have to figure out what kind of music I want to use for this segment.
Okay, so I'm going to do a geek bite about an anime video podcast.
Now, notice we're not doing this on Wednesday. That's purely, entirely by chance.
Yep. There's an anime video podcast called Track Shun TV. TRACK-SHUN, like track or shun, .TV.
Now, I saw it on Dig. That's the only reason I knew about it, because while I don't like the Dig podcast thing, it's still the best podcast thing in the world as far as I can see.
Yep.
So I use it, and I saw that at the bottom with a couple of digs a long time ago, and I never really saw it go anywhere.
Well, I'll tell you the story. So at Otakon was the first time I heard of this because I saw an advertisement for it in the Otakon program. And then at our podcasting roundtable panel, the guy who does it was like, hey, I'm that guy who does it. And Aaron from the Ninja Consultants was like, whoa, you're that guy. You should be up here, blah. And I didn't know anything about this guy. I didn't even know the guy's name, and I watched the show.
All I knew was that the last time I looked, he had like 5 digs, so I thought, wow.
Yep. Anyway, I think currently he has, let's see.
Are you going to look?
No, it's on his page.
Oh.
Hold on.
Well, I don't get the people who put the amount of digs they've gotten on their own website.
It's on our website.
Is it? On
Yeah,
ours?
it's on the right side.
I don't actually look at our website. I don't like that.
Anyway, it's the thing that it lets you dig it when you click on it.
See, I like the letting you dig it, but I don't like the idea of touting
The thing
your
is,
figures.
for podcasts on Dig right now, there's no other way. Anyway.
Oh, well. I still don't like it. I'll go on the record saying that, but whatever.
Yep. So it has 55 digs right now. Anyway, there was an ad for it in the Otakon program guide, and the guy who does it was sitting in the back of the panel room, and he said that he, does a video podcast. He does ads. He said he had like a zillion listeners. His website says that he's the most popular anime video podcast on iTunes, and it also says he's had over 1 million downloads, something.
Uh-huh.
And he has 55 digs, and he said that he gets paid by his advertisers $500 an episode. That's what he said at the Podcasters Roundtable panel. We have a recording of it. I can go back and listen to it. It's on, it's also, you can listen to that on, I think, R5 Central put it up, and the Ranger Cast also put it up. So in either one of those podcasts, you can listen to the Podcasting Roundtable panel. So this guy, he did this show, and I completely forgot about it after Otakon. So Gerald, he IMs me today, and he says, hey, this Track Shun thing, have you heard of it? And I'm like, it sounds familiar. And he says, it's that thing from the guy at Otakon. I'm like, oh, that thing. And I decided on the way home today, I was going to download every anime video podcast except for animepodcast.net, which I watch and I know is good, and I'm going to watch them on the way home. And there were 3 I downloaded, and Track Shun was one of them. I downloaded episode 50 of Track Shun, and I downloaded another episode, maybe 48, I don't remember. And I watched them on the way home. I expected something bad, just because obviously it's me. What was I going to expect?
Consider this. I'd say 99% of the podcasts I have tried to listen to were god-awful. Like, a solid 99%.
So, this is an anime video podcast. I expected bad, right? And I'm about to describe to you the format of this show. And I won't need to describe anything else after I describe the format of the show. That's all I'll need to say. You ready? But I don't want Rim to say anything until I say, and that's the end of the episode.
I will not say a word until Scott bids me to.
Okay. The episode opens with the episode intro, and the guy who does the show is sitting next to his giant television with his laptop on his lap, and he's wearing obvious, anime merchandise hat and shirt, stuff you'll see on for sale at a convention usually, and he'll talk for maybe, 30 seconds, telling you which 3 shows he's going to review. Then he will show you 5 minutes of the first anime he's going to review. He'll just show you the anime, like, here it is, and he'll show you like a good 5 to 10 minutes of the first episode. Then he will come back on screen for maybe 10 to 30 seconds to tell you, what Japanese snacks he's eating this episode, because he eats 3 Japanese snacks each show, right? Which is also merchandise he's trying to sell. Then he'll show you 5 to 10 minutes more of that same first episode. So I watched a show where he reviewed Claymore. So he showed almost half of the first episode of Claymore, maybe even more than half of the first episode of Claymore, just straight up, like copied the fan sub, pasted it into his episode. After the episode is over, he'll come back on screen and he'll say something. This is just, I'm going to pretend to do a review in the way he does a review of a show, right? Let's say he just watched,
Bacano.
No, he just watched one of the things I saw him review was a harem show, right? So he said, a typical harem show. One guy, bunch of girls. It's not really any different than any other kind of harem show, but it made me laugh. So I'll give this one a track. That's the entirety of one of his reviews. He pretty much either gives a show a track or a shun, which is good or bad. And he reviews a show in like 5 seconds and doesn't say much about it other than like, hey, this is a robot show. It wasn't as good as that robot show I watched last week, Sean. That's the review he gives. After reviewing a show, he shows a J-List ad because J-List is a sponsor, and he will, he makes the ads that he puts in the show. So he made an ad for J-List and he put it in the show. It's a good minute long. Then he'll continue talking about J-List for like 30 more seconds. And he will repeat that episode showing and review process 2 more times. So you're going to get 3 J-List ads, 3 like 30-second intermissions in the middle of the episodes of him saying, Japanese snack, something, something. And you're going to get 10-second reviews at the end of the episodes of him saying track or shun. And you're going to get a J-List ad at the end of each episode. And you're going to get like 20 minutes or like 15 minutes, 10 minutes maybe of the first episode of the fan-subbed anime that he watched.
I got to say
times
something.
3.
I got to talk.
That is the entirety of every single show this guy makes. The end.
What the fuck is... Who would...
Imagine if instead of reviewing Bacano, we just played the audio of Bacano for, say, 20 minutes and then said, we liked it. Have a good night.
All right. I'm going to I'm not angry. There are only 2 ways I can look at this. This guy is either an idiot or a genius. And he is either lying or a scumbag.
Yep.
Now, here are the reasons. Either he's an idiot and he's just a pawn of the advertisers and nothing more, or he realizes that advertisers are stupid and he is milking them for all they're worth in the true slacker way with minimal effort possible.
Yep. Either J-List is like, hey, this tool is basically making a video podcast that is nothing more than an ad for us, and he's only doing it for $500 an episode. This is so much cheaper than paying someone to actually do this job, like a video podcast consultant or something. This is awesome. Or this guy's saying, oh man, this is so easy. J-List is giving me $500 for an episode for doing shit. Who cares? Woo!
Now, and the other thing, in terms of how much money he makes, I really wouldn't be surprised if he was lying. But at the same time, I wouldn't, because I've talked to advertisers in the past and we've been propositioned a couple times and they really have no clue. They really have no idea at all. They're just stupid as far as I can see.
Yeah, I don't understand this show. I don't know why it's so popular. Well, I do. It says on his website he has more than 1 million downloads.
Wait a minute,
and he was featured on iTunes.
More than 1 million downloads? We have more than 1 million downloads.
I know. Well, no. How many episodes do we have?
400.
About times how many per episode?
Here's the thing on how he counts the stats, because if you count the raw stats of total downloads from our libsyn, it's almost 1 million.
Yeah, but he only did 50 episodes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't know. I don't trust his stats too much. And even if
I think it's also mostly because he was featured on iTunes, which basically means 1 million downloads right away.
But even
pretty
then,
much anyone who has reported that they have been featured on iTunes on that front page of the podcasting directory has always gotten a huge jump in people paying attention to their show.
the thing is, I wonder how many of those people actually continue to watch.
Well, judging by his 55 digs, not many of them are dig users.
Yeah, well, the thing is, a show like that, I'm going to be perfectly blunt, only an idiot would watch it.
I just don't get it. I mean,
So either there are a lot of idiots out there, both as advertisers and as content watchers, or the guy is milking and exaggerating his initial figures in order to trick advertisers into giving him money.
his only advertiser is J-List. So he's either milking J-List or J-List is milking him, or one of them is taking advantage of the other, or they both think they're taking advantage of the other. And I don't know what's going on here, but you should not waste your time watching track-shun.tv, the anime review video podcast, because there's no reviews. He's just showing you like 10 to 15 minutes of new fan-subbed anime and then saying yes or no to them, and that's it. And then showing you J-List ads.
Wait a minute,
That is
wait a
all
minute.
this is.
Wait a minute. I'm reasonably certain that what he is doing may or may not run afoul of the law.
That's what I was thinking as well. I forgot to mention it just now. But when I watched it on the train, he's just showing, he's basically copying and pasting significant portions of, basically
think
new fan-subbed anime into his video podcast.
It sounds
here.
like he is stretching the idea of fair use quite to its limits.
Yes. Not only that, but his show is released under the attribution, non-commercial, no derivative, Creative Commons 2.5 license.
Oh,
And
really?
I don't think you can take a copyrighted work like that and put it out under Creative Commons license, because people aren't allowed to freely share those fan subs. It's not legal. And I mean, if it is fair use to show something when you're reviewing it. Like,
However,
if you watch Siskel and Ebert or any movie critic on TV, they show a clip from the movie.
However,
or something.
I think the operative word there is a clip, and I wonder what the courts would have to say about
He
what
shows
he
at
does.
least, it's got to be 10 minutes. I'll actually count and figure out the exact minute counts of things, but it's not worth my time. But the vast majority of the show, I would say in the entirety of the show, the 2 episodes I watched, about less than 5 minutes of the show is the guy talking. That's not an advertisement. There's about less than 5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes total of advertisements, including the guy talking and saying advertisements. And the rest of the show is just fan-subbed anime, straight up. Like 2 really big portions of the first episode of a show.
You know what? I think I can sum this up very succinctly. I give it a shun.
I also give it a shun, a big shun.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com, or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.